Hello there everyone, and welcome to your weekly MTA plan work video for the Queens Subways and Long Island Railroad for the weekend of Friday, November 9th, 2018, and lasting until Monday, November 12th, 2018. I quickly want to mention it is Veterans Day weekend, so to everybody who has served, thank you for your service. It's very important that we never forget the people who risked their lives in defense of our American democracy. We get that privilege once a year to remember that. And I quickly want to mention some people are actually getting 4-day weekends because of this. So don't take it for granted, folks, if you are getting Monday off, because it's very important we don't forget the people who served. Even though, again, I'm not going to be... I think I mentioned it to a couple people. I am going to be at work on Monday. But, yeah. Just want to quickly mention I will be in Delmarva next week. It'll be the normal PowerPoint presentation next week. But the week after, please be aware I'm going to have to use my old computer to do the service changes or figure out another way to record. But, needless to say... One last thing before we go into the Queens Subways and Long Island Railroad service changes this week. Well, two things. Well, three things. Yeah, three things. One, alternate side parking will be suspended in New York City on Monday. Please be aware of that in observance of Veterans Day. That also means federal buildings will be closed. So if you're going to any federal buildings, they will not be open. And I also want to mention Thanksgiving Thursday, the 22nd, alternate side parking will also be suspended on that day, so please keep that in mind. Two, I want to give some excellent news. Normal weekday service will be available on Monday through all branches of the MTA, which will include New York City Transit, Metro North, and the Long Island Railroad. That's excellent news that regular weekday service will be available on Monday for people going to the Veterans Day parade in the city. That's excellent news. And what was the third thing? Right. The third thing was we had to talk about some important stuff when I go to the Google Chrome tab later on, because it's very important that we discuss some big news that pretty much shook up the entire MTA as a whole today. If you haven't heard the news, Joe Loader has resigned as chairman of the MTA. I will get into the situation of who will be the new chairman temporarily until a new one can be appointed by Governor Andrew Cuomo in January. So, without further ado, our normal service changes come first, and then we'll get into some very important stuff I need to discuss. Oh, and one more thing. Something important is going to happen at New York City Transit in January that I need to discuss as well. So, let's get straight into it. Excellent news again. No plan work on the 7. But I quickly want to spoil it for J Train riders. Please continue to watch this video because I have some bad news about the J line this weekend. And if you've been familiar with my service changes videos the past couple of weeks or even the past couple of months, I think you know what's coming on the J line this weekend. So please stay tuned or try to fast forward if you're looking for that information, because I want to mention that right now off the top before I forget to talk about it. Partial M-Train service this weekend. So again, very big rail fanning weekend coming up as well for people who like to rail fan. And this is a good weekend for it, as I will explain. November 9th through the 12th, 11 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday. M service will run between Miller Village, Metropolitan Avenue, and 47 50th Street, Rockefeller Plaza, and will replace the 2nd Avenue subway between Lexington Avenue, 63rd Street, and 96th Street. And I will recap this again. There is no service at 57th Street until next month or January, because I've been on the F twice in the past 2 weeks, and if you haven't noticed, yes, they're still doing the station rehab project. So I quickly want to mention that. Is the R affected? Well, there's some news about the R train this weekend. It's going to be some nostalgic feel to it. So, I'll talk about it right now. November 10th to the 11th. Saturday and Sunday, 5:30 a.m. to 12 a.m. midnight. Our service, believe it or not, will run to and from the Jamaica 179th Street F train station because of signal modernization. Manhattan-bound R trains will skip Suffolk Boulevard, Briarwood, and Forest Hills 75th Avenue. And I will mention this right now. If you want to complete your trip, you can take a eastbound train. Right, eastbound. Thinking, right, not northbound. Because you're going eastbound and westbound. Right. You can take a westbound train, an eastbound train at Forest Hills 71st Avenue to complete your trip. I didn't mention that in the slide. How about the E line? Do we have any news about the E? November 9th through the 12th, 11:45 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday. Manhattan-bound E trains will skip Briarwood and 75th Avenue because of signal modernization. November 9th through the 12th, 11:45 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday, same time frame. Manhattan-bound E trains will run express from Forest Hills 71st Avenue to Queensboro Plaza because of signal modernization. So, if you want to have a safe bet and you want to know, well, where do I go from here? Well, again, you have your rendezvous points. If you're going to be going to Briarwood or 75th Avenue, you can take an eastbound train at Forest Hills 71st Avenue or Kew Gardens Union Turnpike. If you're that desperate. It's another rendezvous point, but that's an option. If you need local service, I would recommend just going to Queensboro Plaza and then just taking an eastbound local train. That's the best way you can do it. And it's a big disappointment. Where's our local service on the E line this weekend? Where is it? Well, it's not available. Only Manhattan bound, but eastbound, there's good news about that. So don't have to worry about that. You need to complete your trip. That's what you can do. Take an eastbound train to Forest Hills 71st Avenue or Queensboro Plaza. I do apologize. My post-annual trip's just getting worse. It's that time of the year, so if I sound a little off, I do apologize. On the F train, what do we have? November 9th for the 12th. 11:45 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday. Manhattan-bound F trains will skip Suffolk Boulevard, Briarwood, 75th Avenue because of signal modernization. Again, this is where Forest Hills 71st Avenue is a key. You can go eastbound and complete your trip that way. On the N line this weekend, this is only for Queens. And I'll quickly mention, if you're looking for any further service changes in Brooklyn, please turn to Matt Camper's channel. Because remember, he covers the entire New York City transit line, so he's more efficient on it than I am, but I only do Queens. So here's how the N is impacted in Queens. November 9th for the 12th, 9:45 p.m. Friday to 5 a.m. Monday. Coney Island bound N trains will skip 30th and 36th Avenue in Astoria because of station enhancements. To complete your trip, take a northbound Ditmars Boulevard train at Queensboro Plaza. So, you do have your options. And if you remember them very well, it will be a whole lot less stressful if you remember my instructions. Very important. But, yeah, quickly want to mention that. Unfortunately, I have to talk about the J line again. I know. I hate talking about it. But it has to be discussed because, again, these people in Ozone Park, they don't deserve what they're going through. They really don't. I don't even know when the station rehab project's going to be done because the MTA has been doing this for months. Alright? They've been doing this for months. How is this acceptable? And especially how The people who want to take the Q52, Q53, and they want to go to Queens Center Mall, guess what? They have to be inconvenienced by shuttle bus. I know, it's awful. Those people don't deserve what's going on down there to their precious J service, alright? The J line is another important route in Queens, so I'll get into it right now. It's very familiar, I know, it's getting repetitive, but I have to talk about it. November 10th to the 11th, 3:45 a.m. Saturday to 10 p.m. Sunday. Free shuttle buses in the E will replace J trains between Crescent Street and Jamaica Center because of station rehab. J trains will run between Broad and Crescent Streets. Free shuttle buses will make all J stops between Crescent Street and 121st Street and will connect with the E train at Jamaica Van Wyck. Transfer between trains and free shuttle buses at Jamaica Van Wyck E train station and or Crescent Street J station. And I'm going to say this again. I don't know how much longer is this going to go on. I have a bad feeling I'm going to have to continue talking about this until January at this rate. Because how long is this going to take? Alright? And I'm going to mention it again. I'm getting impatient with the Broadway and train station reopening. Because I can't go to my favorite restaurant in Queens. Because you have to walk an additional 5 to 10 minutes just to get to the Bel Air Diner on 21st Street and Broadway. I'm so annoyed. But this is what the MTA does. And again, I hope next year we don't have to deal with this again. And you people in Ozone Park, and I'm talking to you guys don't deserve this. Just like how I don't deserve being denied access to my favorite restaurant in Queens. I don't. And I know I'm making it a little bit of a rant, but I'm just upset for what they have to deal with in Ozone Park. And if it comes up again, you know I'm going to talk about it because it needs to be discussed. Ozone Park is a forgotten part of Queens, and yet nobody just seems to understand that. Especially how, again, you're right by Woodhaven Boulevard. So I just don't understand anymore. Good news is no planned work in Queens on the A line, but there are service changes. So again, please go to Matt Camper's video for reference to service changes on the A line this weekend. On the G, good news, no planned work. So that's excellent to see that there's no planned work on the G line. So now we have reached the end of this week's PowerPoint. So now we're going to switch over to Google Chrome, talk about Long Island Railroad service changes, other important stuff, the Joe Loda story, and why I have to discuss an important thing happening in January for New York City Transit. This weekend, we only have one service change on the Long Island Railroad. This weekend, and believe it or not, I actually first found this out when I was at Penn Station yesterday. So I pretty much have known about this for past 24 plus hours, but anyhow, we're going to read this. Buses are going to be replacing trains between Far Rockaway and Valley Stream starting at 11 p.m. Friday, November 9th, 2018, and continuing all day on Saturday, November 10th, 2018, as Long Island Railroad personnel will install a new pedestrian bridge at the Gibson Station. Service will be affected as follows. Westbound customers at stations Far Rockaway through Gibson will board buses up to 27 minutes earlier than normal train times, then transfer to trains at Valley Stream for service to points west. Eastbound customers will travel to buses at Valley Stream for transportation to stations Gibson through Far Rockaway. Please plan for up to 24 minutes of additional travel time. This is interesting. Commuters will be able to use the new overpass starting this Monday, November 12th. To view bus departures and arrival times, pick up a special Far Rockaway branch timetable dated November 10th, 2018, or visit the following link. which will be this one right here. So I'm going to leave this one in the description below, but good news is this is the last weekend of it. So as long as it's the last weekend, that's all that matters. Also want to quickly remind everybody that we have new Long Island Railroad timetables going into effect starting on Monday, November 12th. Customers are advised to plan for schedule changes relating to ongoing capital improvement projects and state of good repair track work to minimize the impact of rush hour commutes. The changes have been made the weekend, overnight, in some cases midday off-peak travel. Changes will include Babylon and Long Beach branch. On weekdays, 1 and 2 tracks between Jamaica and Valley Stream will be out of service during midday off-peak hours for state of good repair track work to help improve service reliability. Westbound midday trains on the Babylon branch will depart up to 12 minutes earlier. Additionally, westbound Long Beach midday trains will depart 1 minute earlier. Okay, now we're going to go to service for Brooklyn, Far Rockaway, and Hempstead branches. During overnight hours, 1 or 2 tracks between East New York and Jamaica will be out of service to accommodate cable installation in the Atlantic Tunnel. Several westbound late-night trains to Brooklyn and their connecting trains at Jamaica will depart up to 5 minutes earlier. On weekends, eastbound Far Rockaway branch trains will depart 9 minutes later. On the Hempstead branch, westbound weekend trains will depart up to 7 minutes earlier, and eastbound Hempstead branch trains will depart 2 minutes later. Huntington, Port Jefferson, and Ronkonkoma branches. During overnight hours, 1 or 2 tracks between Cobb Place and Hicksville will be out of service to accommodate preliminary work on the main line expansion project, which will add a 3rd track along the congested 10-mile corridor between Floral Park and Hicksville. Some westbound overnight trains from Huntington and Ronkonkoma will depart up to 18 minutes later than usual. Some eastbound overnight trains will depart up to 11 minutes later. And we'll go to an example for my branch, the Long Beach branch, which I have been taking more often because they give me 2 eastbound express trains to Jamaica from Penn. I quickly want to mention that these schedules are in effect until January 6, 2019. So that's good news. You don't have to get accustomed to a new schedule that much, but yes. Extra seasonal service. So that's probably going to be for Thanksgiving and Christmas Eve, most likely. Who knows? Maybe even New Year's Eve and New Year's Day for, most likely from what I'm thinking. What would it be? Oh, yeah, right. It would have to be for those holidays. I just want to confirm if my normal 211 train has not been canceled. Just want to confirm that. Ah, there we go. And it looks like they still kept the local train that leaves at 2:36 and just stops at Woodside. So that's some good news. That, let's say I want to get to Jamaica by 3 o'clock. I still have that option. But obviously it's important that I have my option for the 211 train. I quickly want to see if the 122 flyer to Babylon didn't get canceled as well. Let's confirm this. I know that train very well. Yep. Guess what, folks? The 122 flyer to Babylon that only stops at Jamaica, Freeport, and Babylon has not been canceled because you know why? You know why? Elisa Pica, Executive Vice President of the Long Island Railroad. That's why. I get so sick and tired of it, but one last thing. 135 Huntington, right? Let's just confirm that that's still here. Yep, 135 to Huntington still has not been canceled. So at least they kept that train. I just want to see something for a sec. Just for eastbound service to Hicksville from New Hyde Park. Let me see if this is correct, folks. I just want to confirm. Okay, good. They did not cancel the 11:10 train. That's excellent news. They did not shrink down the minutes. So at least they're keeping it for 11:10. That's very important to have that eastbound train to go to Hicksville. So, One last thing, I'll remind everybody again, we have the board meeting on Thursday. We have the committee meetings on Tuesday, 2 Broadway 20 at 4. Meaning the attendees are required to go through a security screening upon entering the building. Meetings may begin up to 30 minutes before scheduled start time. So attendees are encouraged to arrive early. Everything is scheduled to change. The good news is, this is excellent to see the Long Island Railroad gets its own separate meeting. But take a look at this, folks. Looks like Metro North from the Long Island Railroad want to end the year off with a bang. Because they're combining the meeting on Monday, December 10th. What else is new? And they did the same thing last month in October. So if you want to go to the meetings, to the schedule, quickly again, you only have about 2 minutes to speak. You get over the 2-minute time limit, they'll beep you, and, please be aware of that. So now we'll close out of everything. And I will talk about the big news from today if you have not heard. And that is, of course, the chairman of the board, MTA Chairman Joe Lhota, resigned. So let's read this. Joe Lhota is stepping down as chairman of the MTA. Sources say he submitted his resignation letter back on Thursday, November 8th. The move comes as the MTA makes preparations for the looming L train shutdown scheduled to begin on April 27, 2019, and overhaul of the subway's aging signal system. For the next 2 months, Vice Chairman Fernando Ferrer will take over as acting chairman. Now, I quickly want to mention something very important here. This is absolutely important. I need you to understand this. Fernando Ferrer, if you have watched any of the New York City Transit meetings, he is the guy that normally sits next to Andy Byford. So I want to know on Monday who's going to be the... Not Monday, right. We're observing Veterans Day, right. I want to know on Tuesday who's going to be the new vice chairman. It's going to be interesting to see somebody else sit next to Andy Byford. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, I'm not even going to read what de Blasio said. So, we're going to read these 2 articles for a quick second here. Now, if you are not familiar... Oh, right, my bad. Here's Joe Lhota. That's not it. These are old articles. We'll quickly look him up. Fernando Ferrer. I know there's a Wikipedia article on him. Yeah, here he is. That's him. Fernando Ferrer was the former borough president of the Bronx from 1987 to 2001 and was a candidate for mayor of the city of New York in 2001 and the Democratic Party nominee for mayor in 2005. Ow. Take a look at this. Chairman of the MTA, right? Acting. That's him. He was also acting chairman twice. That's interesting. That's him right there. Fox 5 microphone and the Channel 11 microphone. That's interesting. So this is how long Fernando Ferrer was the borough president of the Bronx. And we'll quickly look at the political history very quickly of both men, Joe Lhota and Fernando Ferrer. So let's go back to 2001. Let's go back to the Democratic nominees. Many of you remember Mark Green. If you don't remember, was the public advocate of New York City. He lost to Mike Bloomberg. So, pretty much, Fernando Ferrer, there was about 5 people running, right? And it came close between Fernando Ferrer and Mark Green. And then in the runoff, look who won. Yep, Mark Green. He lost to Fernando Ferrer, lost by 3 points. So now, let's take a look at the primary history. Believe it or not, I actually remember this. Anthony Weiner was I remember this now. Anthony Weiner was actually the second place in this primary. Because Fernando Ferrer actually won the primary by a big amount. So that's pretty impressive, if you want to see that. And then Fernando Ferrer, Bloomberg won by about almost 30. Bloomberg won by 19 points in 2005. So that's interesting. And then we'll take a look quickly at 2013. Here is, of course, the blowout numbers for Bill de Blasio. We're not going to get into 17 again because that's an election I want to completely forget about. But yeah, I just want to quickly show you the how contested that primary was that year, because it was there were about, I think, 3 people on the ballot. So let's just confirm this. Alright, so Lhota was able to win the 4 boroughs right here, but Catsimatidis won Staten Island. So that is pretty interesting when you think about it. Right, here are the final results. Lhota won by 52%, and of course Catsimatidis, so that's 12 points, if you want to look at it from a perspective of that. And look how many people ran for mayor, including my New York State Senate, future New York State Senator John Liu. So, yeah, I wanted to quickly go into it, if just because it's interesting. It's really interesting to know how Fernando Ferrer is now going to be, for the 3rd time in his career, the acting vice chairman of the MTA, the acting chairman of the MTA. And then there's this big statement that he issued. Yep. So we're not going to get into it. So now, the question is, I'll quickly make a little bit of speculation here, because this is interesting. This is pretty interesting. I want to talk about this. So, the question is, we all need to think about this. Who is going to be the next chairman of the MTA? Alright? Now, would I want it to be Andy Byford? That would be a blessing in disguise, but that's not going to happen because he still needs to keep his position as president of New York City Transit. I'm hoping it's not Elisa Pica, the executive vice president of the Long Island Railroad. And I'm certainly hoping it's not Hanny Trachtenberg, the commissioner of the New York City Department of Transportation. And I'm hoping it's not Testatori. I'm hoping it's not him. Absolutely not. So, Veronica Vanderpool. This is somebody reasonable. Alright, even though she was in finance, she is trying to look out for the customer. And she actually does bring up some important points. Like, she actually talks to the board about important points from New York City Transit. So, this could be a candidate for chairman. This could be this could be one candidate. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but you have to look at candidates. So, how about Mitch Polley? How about Mitch Polley? So he could possibly be the chairman. I could see this being a possibility. Charles Mulder. Now this is who I was thinking, because he has been around in New York for a long time and he knows a lot about transportation. And currently right now he is the chairman of the MTA Bridges and Tunnels, who, by the way, gets pressed every month by you know who, Murray Bowden. Let's see who else. Not Peter Ward. No. Another character. I'm just going to say this right now. I'm hoping Fernando Ferrer is not going to be the permanent chairman, because if it was Andy Byford, Philip Bang, Veronica Vanderpool... No, not Vinny Testatori. No. Absolutely not. No. Me and Pine Power LI do not like this guy. Not one bit. No. He's a character too. Now, Mulder is a character too, but he's a decent guy. He's not the best, but... So, you have to think it has to be Mitch Polley. Because if it's not, then who else is going to be chairperson? Is it going to be Veronica Vanderpool? I mean, she's young. I mean, she could be chairwoman for a long time. But what about Susan Metzner? As I said, there are numerous candidates on the board that could be the chairman of the MTA. So Andrew Cuomo needs to pick by January, because he's getting sworn in for a third term in January. And you know, I still want to keep my theory that maybe the United States Attorney General, whoever President Trump picks, will actually investigate Andrew Cuomo's corruption. So, let's put it right now. Out of all these people, I think the most reasonable person needs to be Mitch Polley. Because if it's not him, then who else is going to look out for the main line on the Long Island Railroad? Who else is going to support Andy Byford's plan to fix the subways? It has to be him. Has to be. Because he's been on the board for a long time. So one last thing we're going to get into, pretty much, we are going to discuss the Fair Fares program. It has been approved by, guess who, folks? Andy Byford! He approved the Fair Fare program yesterday. Yep. President Andy Byford approved it November 8th, 2018. Meaning, the beta test program of New York City Transit's Fair Fare program will begin in January and continue on until June. It will provide eligible low-income residents in New York City with half-price fare when riding on transit subways and bus lines. Now, I was having a discussion about what major city I would want to move to if things get worse in New York. And actually, Portland, Oregon does this. I actually looked this up. Portland, Oregon does this. They actually give reasonable fares to people who are low income in Portland. I looked it up. They actually do this in Portland, Oregon. So I'm glad New York City's taking Portland, Oregon's example. I can't confirm that. If you want to look it up, go on Portland's Mass Transit website, and I can confirm to you all, Portland does the same thing, because now New York City is taking an example of Portland, Oregon. Yes, this is incredible. I'm happy that they don't have to pay the $275. Well, they should be in my shoes. I'm disabled. I pay the $135. They should be able to pay the $135. Especially how if they're, earning $20,000 a year? They could barely make money for rent? They should be able to get this. That's how you need to be fair. So again, Andy Byford, he did the right move approving this. Had to be approved. So again, I'll mention it. It will go towards the beta. The funding is pretty much approved to start in January and continue all the way to June. Alright? Very important. And you know who approved this. Had to also be Fernando Ferrer, or probably this was Joe Loda's last act before he resigned. The chairperson makes that up. And I also want to mention, again, I don't really read committee books, but if you're really interested about the committee books, I'm going to watch Matt Camper's video later on, and I'll put a link in the description below or on the card, because guess what? Committee meeting! Yep! Charles Mulder! Alright, so that's going to wrap up this long video for this week. Things had to be discussed, but I'm going to say this, Joe Loda, farewell, because honestly, you only cared about the snobs in the Babylon branch. I found this out from Pine Power LI, that Joe Loda actually lives in Lindenhurst. He actually does. So again, Mitch Pauley, he needs to be chairman of the MTA. Because then maybe we can get Elisa Pica fired. Or force her to hand in her resignation letter. So that way, maybe the main line will actually be great again. So that's going to wrap it up. Thank you for watching. Once again, to the veterans, thank you for your service. Hopefully the MTA will treat you correctly this weekend if you are using it. And until the next one, please take care.